Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how you can implement Dagger and also access the room database inside your view model along with Dagger. I'm going to show you how you can insert a data and then you can retrieve the data and display it on the screen. So let's begin by adding the dependencies in our project. So first dependency, we need the Dagger, the com.google.dagger. Second dependency, we need Dagger compiler, the same com.google.dagger. Third dependency, we need room runtime, and next dependency we need room compiler. And as I said, we are going to use view model, so I'm going lifecycle extensions. Yes, apply, and we'll double check here our dependencies so you can see. And for this room compiler and the Dagger compiler, we need to change implementation to capped. And if you see some error in while you are not accepting, then add this plugin inside your Gradle file. Let's think now. Now I am adding a separate package for my database. Here I'm going to keep my DAO database and the entity. So I'm creating a database file now, giving a name app database. Need to be defined as abstract, and it need to extend room database, and it need to be annotated with the database. And inside it will pass our entity. So when we will creating our entity, then we'll pass inside it. Before that, we'll pass the version number of our database. And I'm creating a function inside it. And now this function is going to return the instance of app database. And it need a input context. And I'll check if DB instance is null, then initialize it, else return its DB instance. Database builder, and we'll pass the app database, this one, context, or class, and the name of our DB. Allow in main thread and build. And I'm seeing some error in this DB instance, so it's actually the nullable, but this is not nullable, so we need to force it. That's it. Now I'm creating a interface, that is our DAO. So as we know, when we have used the room DB, so we need to have a DAO where we write our queries. So that interface need to be annotated as a DAO, and inside this interface we'll define our functions for query and the insert. We'll pass our query here. Before we give the table name, we need to have the entity. So I'm creating an entity now. I'm giving a name user entity. You can give any name. And I'm annotating it with the entity and passing the table name. What table name need to be inside our database? So I'm giving the same name, user underscore entity. And inside this table, what kind of the column we want. So now we'll defining those. So I just want a two column. One is ID and second is name. And ID I'm defining as the primary key, and it should be auto generated. We don't need to pass it. And the second column I want as the name. Or maybe some other name, description, DESC. So you can give any name, whatever you want in your database table, and that is going to take the input parameter. Now, as I said, when we have the entity, we'll pass it here inside our database. And now we'll complete our query. So select star from the table name. So we'll pass the table name here and order by descending, ID as descending. So the new records can become on the top. So what function will be calling to access the query? So I'm creating this function, get all records from the DB, and it will be returning list of user entity. And another function, we need to insert the record. So I'm creating a function insert record, which is going to take user entity as input. That's it. Now we'll go to our database again and create a separate function which will return the DAO, what we just now defined. It will be user DAO. So database is ready. Now I'm creating a separate package where I'm going to keep the Dagger dependencies. I'm creating a separate class. As we are aware, first class we define app module, and this app module need to be annotated with the module keyword. And now I'm defining a function here which is going to return the room database instance. But as we define, this function need a context, so we need to get the context in this class. So I'm creating a separate function which is going to return the context. So I'm giving the name provide app context, and it will return the context. But from where? So we need to make this app module as the parametric. So we'll define it, and it will take the input as the application from the constructor. So now we can access that application context, and here we'll pass this provide app context. And now we'll define these functions. We'll annotate these function as a singleton and provides, and similarly the above function as well. I'm creating another function that will return the user DAO. So instead of directly, we can directly access the room DB or the user DAO as well. So it will take app database as the input, and with the help of app database instance we can get the get user DAO. We just now define it as an abstract inside our database class. So as you know, after module we define a interface that is known as component. So I'm creating an app component now, and I'm annotating it as the component, and inside this, and also the singleton, and inside the component will pass our app module name, and we just now created our app module. There you go. Inside this we'll define a function inject, and we'll pass the class where we want to access. So we are going to use the view model, so I'm creating a view model here. So we'll pass this view model inside our app component, so we can directly inject our app module functions or the instance inside our view model. So let's implement our view model now. So I'm directly injecting a user DAO. So we can directly access the uh, app database as well here, but I'm directly injecting that user DAO here, and this is the live data for returning the results what is stored in the database. Inside init block will initialize it, and this function will return this mutable live data so that we can set the observer in our activity. And this get all records function will make the query to the database, and then that will return the list of user entity, and we'll make a call to post value and pass this list. Next function we need the insert record. So this function will call from the activity to insert a record one by one, but it need as input user entity. So user DAO dot insert record, and we'll pass this user entity. And when record is inserted, at that time we'll update the activity. We'll just to make a call to get all records and get the updated result. And inside the init block we'll come back after creating our application class. So I'm adding a comment here, and let's go and create a class. I'm giving a name as my application or my app. That's my app is fine. It need to be extend with application, and here we'll initialize our app component. Now we'll override our onCreate function, and inside our onCreate function we'll initialize this app component, this Dagger app component. This class is automatically created. If you don't see this class, then you can clean and rebuild your project, then you will be able to see it. And as we define app module need to have the application instance. So while I'm passing this, That means we are passing the instance of application to our app module. And this function will simply return the instance of app component. And this my app class will not work until we will define this inside our manifest file. So let's define it inside our application block and pass this our application. This is very important step. Don't miss out this defining inside the manifest file. Now let's add some views inside our layout file. So I'm adding a edit text on the top. Where we'll be taking some input from the user to store inside our database. And this button, on this button we'll call insert function of our database. And now I'm adding a text view where we'll be displaying the stored data. So whatever records we have on the database will display it on this text view. So I'm adding all three views as a vertically on that activity. So first thing in this activity, we need to handle the save button click. So on save button, we need to build the user entity. As we saw, like insert function need to have the user entity. So ID we don't need to pass because it's auto incremented. Only thing we need to pass what we are storing from the added text. Now we need to initialize our view model to call the insert function of our view model. So let's initialize it. Now we'll set up the observer. I don't see that function name here. Let's see what we defined. Let's get record observer. I can call it directly. And here we'll override it on change function. And since this is the list, so I'm making a for each call so that we can display all the records on this text view, not just the one record. So it's better to call append function with the value, whatever its name, with /n. And before that we need to reset this by setting it empty. And now we need to call the view model dot insert record, and we'll pass this user entity. And since we already called that get all records function from the insert record, so it will automatically load over all the records in the text view. Now we have all set up here. Let's go to our view model, and as we mentioned, we'll come back here. So it's time to inject our view model so until we will not inject this view model, will not be able to access user DAO. It will always be null. So this is very important step. Now I'll remove this comment. And now we are all set. Let's run our application and see. So initially I don't see any record. Let me enter some text inside it. I'm adding saving so we can see it. Now I am adding second record. There you go. So we are able to store, we are able to insert and make the query successfully. So guys, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any question, you can ask me in the comment section. Thank you.